Abraham Alexander, thanks so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter podcast. You and your music are very closely associated with Texas, where a lot of wonderful music comes out of, even to this day. But your story begins somewhere else entirely on the other side of the world. It begins in Greece. What do you remember from growing up in Greece, personally, but also musically? What was it like in the culture over there?
Man, that's a beautiful question. I remember the air being cleaner.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, the free feeling emotions of freedom and the wind at my back. Um, Man, the water, the food. It was such a. I think as a kid, just being just interested in a lot of things and interested in exploring, it was the perfect place to grow up for just looking back and um, man, it's surreal. Just I'm trying to bring out all these visuals, but I think for me as a child, it was such a beautiful experience of waking up, smelling coffee, walking outside. You've got gypsies trying to read the coffee grounds of people, and you've got the food, you've got the different cultures, and it was beautiful. Point blank. Period. It was really really beautiful to grow up in and experience. Now the external things of society beyond just what my purview is, um, that was harder as I get older and I realize what was around me. But um, what I could experience and what my mind could comprehend, it was extraordinary.
I read in an interview that you gave one of the things you appreciated about Greece was like in the education that you got. You said that it allowed you to kind of put you with a kind of a baseline of trying to divine truth yourself and be able to think freely rather than being told what to think. It makes me think. Do you think Greek education still to that day when you were getting it, did it kind of follow like a Socratic type of tradition, like those that kind of Greek philosopher type tradition?
Absolutely. And I think that is the mind space of a lot of um, uh, Greeks, and just the ability to think is extremely important, and the ability to come up with your own understanding of life and your own understanding of politics and psychology and sociology, and even what was instilled in us as children was, we're told these stories, and we're told um, uh, these lessons, and ultimately is how to think and not what to think from these stories that they're teaching. um, Going outside and learning, and obviously just the history of what, especially Athenians, and just the history of philosophy being there. It's very much the nature and the culture of what the country is.
That's neat. I've come to all that Greek philosophy very late in life, and as I was reading your story, getting prepared for this, I was very excited
Oh man.
to see if Socrates had an effect. Can you imagine being such an iconic and important person like Socrates that, like 2,000 years later, you as a young man, like your education was being influenced by by his example that he set? I mean, that is such a spiritually deep accomplishment, you know?
Yeah, man, and it's, but then just knowing that it has nothing to do with me, but it has something to do with him,
Hmm.
and the fact that that legacy still lives on, and it would be the same for any family, and say their matriarch or their patriarch being someone who understands the values of thinking and understands the values of two things can be true at the same time, and it's us to be able to mediate and have um, the have discernment on what I should do within this. It could be the Bible for some,
Hmm.
to where the Bible is this script, which I'm not extremely religious, but I'm someone who has faith, and believes in the Bible and could be like one thing that people take and say, all right, there's wisdom within this, and this is the legacy that I have. So I feel like it's kind of the same, and I got the best of both worlds in a way.
Discernment. That's a good word that you don't hear too much anymore, and I like to hear
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
So, what kind of music was bouncing around you at this time, or was music even something that you were interested in at that time?
Not at all. I think Michael Jackson broke the nose because it's Michael Jackson.
Right.
He broke the noise everywhere. And then this individual named Saki Ruvas,
Okay.
which was a Greek version of Michael Jackson. And so
Okay.
everyone knew of Saki Ruvas, but other than that, like I was not interested in music whatsoever. It was sports that was my thing. It was riding a bike, going outside and exploring the country, exploring the city. Um, yeah, reading books, playing like that was my. So I didn't care about music whatsoever. Like it wasn't something
Interesting.
that, yeah, it wasn't something that fueled me whatsoever.
It strikes me that Greek Michael Jackson sounds like a hipster band name from like 2011.
Yeah, Saki Saki Uvaz is wild. Yeah, look him up. He like there's some similarities too, and just the
Yeah.
mannerisms that he would use. But yeah, like and then the Greek music is that kind of traditional thing. So it wasn't outside of weddings. Like I didn't care for it, you know.
Sure.
So
Fair
um,
enough. So
yeah,
I think you made your way to America and to Texas when you were about 11 years old. What was that? I mean, that's relatively old for a kid to be making a huge transition like that. Was an exciting transition, or was it one were you sad to leave? I mean,
Mm.
what were the feelings involved moving at that age?
I think there's multiple emotions that are brewing at once. One being happy of the possibilities to rediscover myself, the possibilities of reintroducing myself to the world, and also sadness of leaving the only place that I've ever called home. And but just remembering it feeling eternal in a way of going on this plane that seemed to be forever.
Yeah.
And as an 11-year-old, first time ever flying, you're old enough to know to like experience it, but not old enough to understand what's happening. And
Mhm.
so I was battling between the two, battling what my body was experiencing and what my mind was trying to comprehend.
And what was the America that you found on the ground? Were you able to just drop right in and begin, finding friends and finding, influences in a new culture, or was it kind of a culture shock?
It was a culture shock for sure. I didn't speak any English, and
Really?
no, none. Hello,
Wow.
hi, how are you? But didn't speak English at all, and so I'm watching movies to try to with subtitles. Shout out to Lion King. To try to learn the language. I am, you know, playing in sports, signing up for as much as I can. I took ESL, which is English as a second language in school. Um, and it was hard at first. I was getting in trouble, I think, because of, getting in fights because I'm trying to explain myself and not really finding the words to do so. Or
Hmm.
um, in my my folks are also immigrants from Nigeria, and so there's cultures within the African diaspora and Greece and US now, and different culture barriers that I'm trying to communicate through that are not they're not working. Like for one, if you look at someone in the eye as they're talking to you, someone who's older, it's disrespect. If you look at someone in the eye here in the States, or if you don't, then it's disrespect as they're speaking. And so there are things like that, different gestures, hand gestures, or whatever that I'm trying to do to supplement my lack of language that isn't working. And so I was getting frustrated a lot, but once those things started to become second nature. Then making friends was a lot easier, and understanding the world around me became a lot easier. And playing sports was a huge way for me to gain friends, and it it became the second language in which I can speak through. So there was a balance.
You know, you're talking about these very significant obstacles that you had with communication early on, both culturally and linguistic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, looking back now, how do you think that those experiences, like having to overcome those communication barriers on multiple levels, how do you think that that has affected your artistry now? How has it made you a different artist than you otherwise would have been?
Tremendous. I think I have this ability now to look at things from a different perspective and different spheres, and try to get to a solution. So I could be writing a song and saying, I think with this message, I need to say what I need to say and say it clearly. And it could be with another song to where, like, I think I need some imagery. I think I need a way to creatively express this. And I don't have a hard time trying to pick one or the either, because it was so hard before. And now I have the discernment to say, this is that. I have that voice that I've kind of developed and cultivated over the years to say, this is the way that will get the message across in the best way. Um, because it was so challenging before, and I had to have the internal dialogue to figure out the best way to say it outwardly, that now it's just second nature.
So do you think you're more tuned in to someone that you're speaking with, either interpersonally
Mm.
or with a song? Do you think you're a bit more tuned in as to whether they're catching your drift or understanding you?
So when I'm writing a song, essentially that isn't my that isn't my objective. When I'm
Mhm.
writing a song, I'm writing it to, especially with this record. With the next one, it might be different, but this record was very much an internal dialogue of what I've been through, and it being a process for me of telling my story. And if I tried to do it any other way, I thought it would have been disingenuous, because I'm forcibly trying to create a connection. But my objective was, if you heard my story and you felt a connection, then we're kins in a way, and our pains have bonded us through the overcoming, in a sense. And so, yeah, like, it's such a hard and fine line. Like, some songs are like, I just want to write a song, and I'm doing it to, like, grab a hold of people. I think this was to grab a hold of me and to tell my story. And if people can grab a hold of the story, then we have a connection. And so that's how I went about it. So the dialogue was definitely internal. And how do I want to tell my story? And do I want to tell my story in in a direct way, or do I need similes and metaphors to express what I want to say?
It's interesting because you're talking about writing this latest batch of songs, which has now become your most recognized batch of songs as this kind of like internal dialogue, and
Hmm.
yet it's communicating very powerfully. Obviously, you just finished 3 nights sold out at the Kessler Theater in Dallas, so people are responding to it. I just wonder what that. There is a certain irony to that, right? That the more personal you would write something, the better it speaks to other people. You would think that it would almost be the opposite.
I say so because the spirit of yearning, the spirit of pain, the spirit of overcoming hardship is one that everyone can resonate with. And the people are longing, especially in today's world, people are longing to connect. And a
Yes.
lot of times the message of flash and gold and cars or whatever it may be, like, doesn't. And the elements that are universal are the ones that are within this collection, and I, that's what people are grabbing a hold of. I wrote songs about my mom passing away, my brother passing away, and journey, and choosing a place, like where do I belong, and these are things that are part of a human's journey. And we talked about my upbringing, and the Socrates, and the Odyssey is one of belonging and traveling, and my song Stay is about that, and that is something that everyone is trying to decide whether they know it or not. Is this school where I'm supposed to go? Is this job where I'm supposed to take and go and stay? Is this relationship what I'm meant to be in? Like, what is my purpose? Like, those are questions that are intricate, integral to our own personal growth and personal development that are in this record. And that is what people are grabbing a hold of, and uh, using as their own soundtrack for that question.
What do you think it is about your character that made you take all of this hardship? As you mentioned, not only did you have this huge culture shock of coming to the States, your mom did pass away when you were younger. You were adopted here in the States. A lot of people would take those experiences and they would end up in a much more negative place, or
Mm,
much more negative techniques
mm.
for coping or trying to make sense of things. And you've ended up with a very positive outlook for it, and a very positive outlet for it. What do you think it is about your character that pulled you closer to that side than to kind of a darker side?
I think faith for sure, and faith that my story is being written, and what I'm going through is not for me to really hold on to, and but for me to share. Just knowing that I am only a speck in the world,
Hmm.
and even though I'm only a speck, like my life has meaning, and that meaning is to be a bridge, is to be a connection. And so, growing up in Greece and seeing the lack that we had, but yet there's joy, and seeing like what is the joy,
Hmm.
and it's the ability to communicate with each other, and to know that we are more alike than not. That I would say has been tremendous in being the foundation that gives me joy now, and the foundation that lets me know uh, that everything's going to be okay. And if it's not, that means that it's not finished yet. So,
That idea that you mentioned there, that through faith, you know that you are living out a story
mhm.
that has been written, that you are a bigger part of. It's one that I share and that I agree with, but I actually think in this day and age, it's a bit countercultural at this point, because what we're bombarded with, at least in American culture, I can't speak to any others, is this idea. You see it in marketing campaigns of have it your way. You do it your way. I did it my way. And I think that leads to a profound breakdown in meaning for people, because there's just not too much meaningful about living a story that you completely write yourself. Are there other ways that you pull on that faith for creative sustenance?
Yes, you know, and if when I look around, and I look at my life, and the world around me, it's beautiful, and I look at someone's pain, and I say, wow, what a story like that you would be able to have if you have that outlook. And so, if I understand your question correctly, it's again seeing that connection, seeing the world around me, and seeing different cultures, and seeing how um, we're in this two different realms of being these two different cultures, but yet there's these connections beyond us. So again, yeah, again, seeing that it's not about me, seeing that the things that are happening to me essentially are not, um yeah, I don't like it,
You're good. You're good.
yeah.
I asked you a very strange and metaphysically deep question in the middle of a songwriting podcast. So you're
Yeah, yeah.
totally
No, no,
good, my
no,
friend.
no, no, no,
Um,
no. But it's great. But it's great. No.
so listen, I want to know now,
Hmm.
when did your life take this turn towards the music and creative life? How did you go from someone whose primary two musical influences were Michael Jackson and Greek Michael Jackson growing up to someone who's now playing this kind of almost like American vernacular roots music that is very compelling, that people are flocking to? Again, you sold out 3 nights at the Kessler Theater in Dallas. Like, when did you, when did that turn happen, and what did it look like?
So I was injured, and was sort of still, meaning I couldn't. I was immobile, and I had a guitar, and it felt like someone gave me a pen for the first time. And how the emotions that I was feeling started to make me cry and become out really. Before, as a kid, I would hold on to it and hold on to the emotions and hold on to the pain. And it was like, if I needed to lash out, it would be physical, whether playing a sport or playing, um you, or acting out and fighting. And now I have this instrument and tears are falling out, and so it was as if someone's like, here's a pen, tell me how you feel. And I think that that opened up so many things for me, um, spiritually. And now I can write about all these different emotions without lashing out and without it being this physical thing that I'm doing. And not that I was over the top, but I just didn't know how to express emotion. I didn't know, um, I would rarely cry before, and now it's this constant thing. uh,
I picked up a
like,
guitar and now I can't stop crying.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I can't stop crying. And not that like all my songs are like this crying situation. It's not, but even I it's so bizarre. Like, the best way I could express it is someone gave me a pen for the first time, and someone gave me these coloring utensils for the first time, and now I'm able to express my emotions and what I'm feeling, and how to do so. Um, and it was so beautiful, man. Like, and now everything I did or wanted to do was to learn more about this instrument and to learn more about how to express what I'm feeling. And the more I did that, the more doors would open up for me to do so. I'm working at a bank as a teller, and I'm bringing my guitar to work, and would leave it in my car in the hot sun, and then would go back during my lunch break, and I'm learning how to play, watching YouTube videos, and I'm sweaty in the car because it's Texas and it's hot as hell, and then go back to work. And that was something I would do, and it would give me so much joy. And so everything I did was to tap into that emotion. Uh, and when I did that, the more doors would open up for me, and I would meet these individuals that would take me to my first concert, and uh, have me be part of an experience. It was surreal and it was beautiful, but it was me diving into this instrument and diving into the the learn like the more I learned who she was and who he was, the more that doors would open.
Gotcha. And what were some of those early concerts that you would go to that really inspired you?
The first concert, there's this. So I was working at the bank at the time, and uh, I wanted to go to Guitar Center, and so I went, and I met this. young kid playing the guitar, and it was insane. He was insanely gifted, and so we struck up this conversation, and just the fact that I've never been to a concert, and so he's like, "What are you doing right now?" I was like, "Well, I'm at Guitar Center." Mind you, I've never met this person before, and he goes, "Come with me to a show right now. There's a guy named Tommy Katana, I believe is his name, and he's this blues player, and I love him." And I was like, "Cool, let's do it." I've never met this dude before. I jumped in his car and I go to this small private club bar space in Dallas, and it's this guy playing cover songs of Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix, and that was it blew my mind because it was what I was watching on YouTube, and now I'm seeing it firsthand, and I'm seeing grown men just like falling over this dude playing, and I think that was one of the memorable moments, and concerts that really hit me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's something palpable about it. Every 5 years, one tech company or another says that they're going to put us into virtual reality, and they come out with these different glasses, and they're like, it's great, man. You're not going to have to leave your house, and all this stuff is just going to come to you, and you're not going to have to go. And I think what they're so misguided on is it's like, cool, cool, cool. Nobody's asking for that, man. Like
Mm,
people, of course, we like learning stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. Great, fine, fair enough. But we want to go to the small private club where there's 75 people in a sweaty club communing over someone's mastery of their instrument. We want to do that. We're not looking to avoid that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? We're looking for as many of those experiences as possible. And it's an embodied experience. It can't be had to a certain degree, it just can't be had virtually. It really can't.
no, no, it's communion. It is. Um, the first connection you ever have, if you're thinking about it, when you're born, is with your mother, and uh, when you bond over while you're eating, and I feel like being at a table draws on that same connection, of development. And you call a school an alma mater, which Latin means second mother. And I feel like being in communion with people, having that relationship, is part of development, and you can't get that in nothing virtually. We just came through a pandemic, and we had concerts, but that was not the same. We tried to create connection. We tried to eat as a family. Had this thing called Zoomcella, and I'm in a Zoom with my friends, and we're eating together at dinners, and we're playing concerts, and it's not the same.
No,
The feeling you get when you hear a bass at a concert, and your body feels, and the movement and the vibration, you know you need all five senses in order to create an experience, and
you
you
do.
can a long lasting experience, and you can do it, and sure, like, but it's not the same. And I think that's what people long for. And going to that concert, I just went through this crazy analogy, but like going to that concert was so important because I saw that it's real. I saw that it was real, and then a few years later, I'm in a studio for the first time, and I'm seeing people work on a record, and it's again this communal experience. It's two, three, four, six people coming together to create something bigger than themselves. And yeah, like,
Well, coming together and making it in real time, that's one of the beautiful things about coming together and doing a session with other people is things will take a course that you couldn't predict because putting six people in a room who are all different people with their own different spirits and different energies, you can put them together 100 different times and you come out with 100 different outcomes.
Mm,
And there is something about it happening in real time like that. So what was that first session that you went into? Was it one that you were playing on, or was it one of
yes.
your own?
Yeah, no. So I'm gonna tell a story because why not?
Please.
I'm working at the bank and uh, someone comes in and instantly I have this feeling that I need to get to know this individual. And we strike up a conversation. He just moved here from California. He's a railroad conductor and just moved to Texas. And so we exchange numbers, which you're not supposed to do at a bank. But the fact that he was male kind of made it a lot better to
Yeah.
do without it being looked at wrong. And so we become friends. And he invites me over to his place. He's a photographer to take photos. And while I was waiting for him to come, I see dudes taking amps out of a van, and that something in me was like, go find out who these people are and what they're doing. And I do so, and they tell me that they're recording an album for Leon Bridges, and to come and check out what's going on. And so I went, and it was this spiritual experience of again this community coming together and creating something bigger than themselves. And while I went to the first concert and seeing that it was real, and now I'm now seeing the process of putting sound to wax, putting sound down on it. It was surreal, man. It like I'm still getting chills just being in that space, and obviously, what became of that record coming home speak for itself. But I got to see a behind the scenes of that, and which was the catalyst to me doing what I'm doing right now. And yeah, it was a ceremony. It's wild. It was a ceremony for sure. And um,
Were there any aspects of that recording process that surprised you, seeing it for the first time?
yes, it was how and that one was completely different than every other one that I've seen before, but just how relaxed it was. Them sitting down, listening, meticulous, how much fun they were having, how like people laughing, the mistakes that they were leaving, and they were like, it's fine, you don't have to fix it. To where before I'm like, oh man, it has to be done X, Y, and Z before. And not that I've been in the studio before, but when I was kind of listening to music and trying to uh, create some type of legacy with who's inspiring me and who inspired the people that inspired me, and I'm doing my homework, I'm thinking, oh man, it has to be this perfect thing. And uh, they're using tape, which was kind of unique because no one was doing the retro thing anymore. So this is something of the past, and I think that record is what brought the retro back to popularity. And that to me was extremely intriguing.
So this new record that just came out, is it pronounced Seasons or Seasons?
Seasons,
Seasons.
seasons,
Okay,
yeah,
good. Didn't
yeah.
want to screw that up.
No, the S is
Abraham.
silent. Yeah,
The
or
slash is silent.
the slash is
The
silent.
slash
Yeah,
is silent. All right.
yeah.
So Seasons. Where did you record this one, and what was that process like? How were you able to get this down?
Yeah, so it was sort of a collaborative situation with this, to where some was done in London, some was done in North Carolina, LA, and Dallas, and me kind of at the epicenter of it, but yet drawing from the inspirations of what I felt like would be the best to explain what the song was. And so I worked with Brad Cook in North Carolina. I worked with Matt Pence here in Dallas, Dominic Baseman in LA, and Jay Curler in LA, and Nick Brenton. So it was kind of a collaborative thing, and me trying to get my ideas and who I was together. And I was kind of inspired to do that because of my work, my first EP, which I did in London, and seeing how awesome it was to work with multiple producers and seeing what I liked and what I didn't. And when you listen to that EP, it's like none of the songs sound the same. It's just kind of um, me expressing everything that I am. And with this record, it's like dialed in. And the only song that I took from it was "Stay," which I added on to the record and or to the album. And yeah, so that process was really really awesome. I probably won't do it that same again, and because I feel like was such a unique thing, and just for this. Um, but the essence of collaborating was one that I was excited to do, and what was done for the album.
Were you going into each one of those to write and compose as well, or had you written the tunes and you would just go into those different producers to have them fleshed out and kind of arranged?
They were all written, so
Gotcha.
they were all written beforehand, and I had an idea of what I wanted to sound like, but it was like who would be best to bring out the elements that I'm thinking, and then it was all mixed by Matt Pence here in Dallas, and then yeah, all mixed here. So that was kind of the idea, but already written the songs. I knew the kind of chronology that I wanted to go, and it was now how can I get the elements that I know I love and the elements that I am and want to portray, like who would be best to get that, and just kind of asking people and seeing who would work with me because I was sort of this baby out, and sometimes people don't want to work with new artists that they don't know or trust, and it was getting the people that loved what I was doing and who could bring out the best out of them.
It's such a good experience to go from producer to producer because I just love getting into different people's workflows, and I always end up stealing so much after
Mm,
working with somebody else. What were some of the techniques that you ended up taking from the different producers?
man, one I would say uh, there. Oof, man, there's so many. One, so Matt Pence, he loved all of us being in the room at the same time, and so kind of creating that energy and creating that excitement, and it being organic, which I loved. And there is Anu Pila, who I did stay with, and he's very much of like let's keep it contained and then we can take it and go out and kind of
Hmm.
he would kind of do it in digital aspect and then go to the analog, and so that there was that which I thought was awesome. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, and so that's something that I'll probably continue to take with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those are the two schools of thought. Whether you do it on the floor and you get that energy and you can't really make too many decisions or revisions afterwards,
Mm,
or whether you put it in a place where you can do revisions afterwards, but maybe you're missing that kind of chemistry that happens on the floor. I don't think it's either or. I think I've seen both of those techniques work as many times as I have seen them not work. You know what I mean? Like it, I think it depends on the song and the musicians, and you can. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. You know.
absolutely. I think chemistry is important because you can't do that if they're with everyone being there at the same time and kind of creating. But I think chemistry has to be there, knowing what you want out of the song, knowing the message that you want to get across and how you want to get it across. And I think if you kind of do it one way and then transition to analog, the next is uh, kind of allows some mistakes and then you correcting it and then taking it through a whole different process. But no, like there isn't a right way. There's benefits to both, and I like that. I think I'm still, for me personally, I'm still developing and still, my voice is still getting better. My guitar playing is still getting better, and so I like being able to just be an idiot and throw things at the wall, and then once I'm there, kind of now let's refine it. So um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, with this new record in the can and now released, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you're probably about to go out on the road for a very long time. Is that true?
it is,
Yeah, man,
man.
that'd be fun. You ready
It's
for
so
it?
I am. So what's funny is I've been kind of on the road quite a bit already, and but this next few months are going to be pretty insane. I've got playing Bonnaroo. I'm playing Newport Folk Festival, playing Farewell Festival, ACL, and then I'm going to Europe with the Lumineers as well, which is surreal. And so I can't wait to share this and make the world a smaller place with these tunes, man. This is it's been a dream of mine, and to be able to live that, you know, it's this life is never guaranteed, and the success is never guaranteed, and I'm getting to live, no matter how minuscule it is, I'm getting to live what, you know, 99.9% of the world never get to. And so I don't take that for granted whatsoever, but accept it with humility. And um but yeah, I'm excited to go across the pond and play, and the places we're playing is are insane, like coliseums and castles.
Are you getting back to Greece on the tour?
Unfortunately not,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
So but that will definitely happen
That'll
very,
happen.
very soon, I'm sure.
That'll happen. Well, good luck and Godspeed on your journey to come. And thank you so much for being a guest on The Working Songwriter.
Oh man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate very much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.